Hey guys, Pie Guy Ghouls here. And I've heard some pretty positive things be said about Scooby Doo Mystery Incorporated over the years. People telling me that it's like Scooby Doo, but more complex, more realistic, with better developed characters and an overarching story in line with something like Gravity Falls. So, with it coming to the Boomerang streaming service this month for Halloween, and me accidentally still having that streaming service after forgetting to cancel my free trial, I decided to check the show out. And I was certainly surprised. Scooby Doo Mystery Incorporated is different from your average Scooby Doo show in a number of ways that I would like to break down in this video and talk about how they positively and negatively affect the series and the Scooby Doo formula as a whole. So, there are three main aspects that make this show different from other Scooby Doo series, and in those aspects, you can even break them down into other subcategories. For instance, the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that the characters are stationary. In most iterations of Scooby-Doo, the gang is traveling around in the Mystery Machine, and sometimes they'll visit famous places, sometimes they'll just be in some random bayou swamp. It's not like Ben 10 where they're specifically traveling the country or anything, they're just always on the move for some reason. This series has the characters all living at home with their parents in a town called Crystal Cove. While yes, they do travel outside of the town for a few episodes in mysteries, generally speaking, most episodes take place in Crystal Cove, or at least in an area that is pretty close to Crystal Cove. This means a few things for the show. First of all, because the location is the same in most episodes, it's able to feel a bit more cohesive, a bit more like an actual place and an actual world, and it maintains a sense of continuity between the episodes that you don't get in a lot of other iterations of Scooby-Doo where they're just in random locations at random times, with no sense of where or why. Also, because they're in the same place, the show is able to have a lot of recurring characters, like the mayor, the sheriff, the weird girl in school they all call Hot Dog Water. So there's a sense of familiarity across the episodes because these aren't just one-off characters that appear in one episode. And I think the best use of this is that there are instances where a character that's introduced in one episode ends up being the victim or the villain in a later episode. This makes the mystery a lot more interesting because it makes the mysteries more personal. The people who are victims aren't just random one-offs, but characters that we've grown to know and care about. Some random guy is about to lose his ski resort because there's an abominable snow monster? Who cares? But the sheriff of the town, who's been a great comic relief character over like 15 or so episodes previously, suddenly being out of a job because some guy is running around pretending to be this old Western vigilante? Okay, now I'm interested. And it's really neat to see a character who was introduced as just some side character be repurposed as an important part of a plot in a later episode. Don't get me wrong, I do think there are pros to having the Scooby Gang travel around the country and also other countries. I'm not saying this is strictly better than that, but it is an angle that very few Scooby Doo series have tackled. And because of that, it makes it stand out more in a positive way, because it definitely plays upon the positive aspects of taking place mostly in one centralized town. And for what it's worth, I actually really enjoy the recurring characters. The sheriff is one of the funniest and best characters on the show. Not to mention the guy who runs the clam shack that has an eye patch over his nose. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention the fact that the characters' parents are characters in the show. Granted, most of them only appear when the characters need to get in trouble or whatever, but a few of them, like Daphne's mom or Freddie's dad, get significant spotlight and end up being important in a few different mysteries. Which, again, is another refreshing change, that these characters are actually teenagers that live at home and have actual parents that we see a number of different times, instead of just being like a one-off cameo in one random episode of Scooby-Doo series number 8. The next major departure from your average Scooby-Doo series is the overarching mystery. Now, I will not be spoiling what that mystery is. I will be talking about aspects of how they unfold the mystery and the storytelling behind it, but I will not reveal any of the big plot twists. So, with that being said, this is very much something that sets this show apart from most other Scooby-Doo series. I think Shaggy and Scooby-Doo Get a Clue might have had an ongoing story, but just saying the name of that show makes me want to vomit all day long. And the only other one I can think of is the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, which unfortunately didn't even get to finish its storyline. Anyway, the way this story plays out is basically in most episodes, there's a clue left behind by a mysterious character named Mr. E. Usually, the clue pertains to the mystery of the week, but every so often, we're let in on a clue as to the bigger mystery going on in Crystal Cove. The information on this unfolds very, very, very slowly up until the last few episodes of the first season, where things eventually do pick up. There are only a few episodes that are dedicated solely to this mystery, at least in season 1. In season 2, well, I didn't exactly make it very far in season 2 for reasons I will talk about shortly. But yes, the ongoing mystery is definitely tantalizing, it's definitely interesting, it makes me want to keep coming back and learning more clues, but it does unfold a little bit too slowly and in a way that is kind of formulaic, and not exactly organic or natural or meaningful. It's just a very, very slow unveiling of, admittedly, a decent concept. Because yeah, I do actually like what this mystery was. I do like the concept that they went with, because yeah, once the mystery is finally fully revealed, things do pick up a bit. That last episode of the first season has some twists and turns that I didn't see coming, and did do a good job of paying off what was set up all season long, and setting up things to happen in season 2. So is the ongoing mystery a pro or a con? Well, I definitely don't think it's a con, because it really doesn't take anything away, especially considering that although little clues are given out in many episodes, because they're only a small part of any given episode, you can still watch the series in any random order you want aside from those key story episodes, and not really be too confused. I do think it's a pro, I just wish that the execution on this was a little bit better. I wish there were more full story focused episodes interspersed throughout the whole season, as opposed to just being very, very lightly sprinkled with the big finale at the end of the season. Because I think that an even more heavily serialized Scooby Doo series could be something that really shakes up the franchise. And lastly, the biggest thing in my opinion that differentiates this show from any other Scooby Doo version is that this show is more character driven than Scooby Doo has ever been. What do I mean by that? Well, for one, the show actually has subplots. The characters do more than just literally solve mysteries and maybe exhibit 1 or 2 personality traits along the way. The first few episodes have this subplot where Daphne has a crush on Freddie, but Freddie is kind of oblivious to it, and Shaggy having a secret relationship with Velma that he hides from Scooby-Doo because he doesn't want Scooby to get jealous. And hey, in those first few episodes, I was like, wow, that's great, you have a B-plot. You don't usually have those in Scooby-Doo episodes. You have something for the characters to do other than just solve the mystery. Wonderful, fantastic. And then, as the series went on, I realized that this is literally all they give these characters to do in every stinking episode in the first season. There are 10 agonizing episodes where Shaggy is trying to quote-unquote balance his quote-unquote relationship with quote-unquote Velma and his quote-unquote friendship with quote-unquote Scooby-Doo. There are 10 episodes of that. Velma tells him to pick between the two of them, but he takes like 3 episodes to do so. And of course, he picks Scooby-Doo, which prompts Velma to be really upset at him and just like angsty for the next 10 episodes. Seriously, when he finally picks, all Velma can think about is how petty it is that Shaggy chose a dog over her. And she keeps phrasing it like that too, as if the writers think it's so funny that haha, it's like Shaggy is dating Scooby-Doo. Maybe that joke was funny once, but the fact that Velma keeps saying it like that is it's just weird. Oh, and by the way, when Velma finally becomes cool with Shaggy again, after all the passive-aggressive, petty, obnoxious, unlikable stuff she does and says about him for having the nerve to decide he doesn't really want a relationship with her, when that happens, the show teases us by having Shaggy start to like her again. Now granted, that doesn't last more than pretty much just 1 episode, but even still, after doing this obnoxious love triangle between Shaggy, Scooby-Doo, and Velma, the show has the nerve to try to pull the other most obnoxious, overused relationship trope out there in television. Ugh. And it's basically the same story, but worse, with Daphne and Freddie. Ugh. Okay, so when the series starts out, Daphne has a crush on Freddie, and Freddie seems preoccupied with his quote-unquote traps. And at first, I thought they were going to pull the trope where Freddie just always conveniently is misunderstanding Daphne. But no, the show makes it clear at various points that Freddie does understand Daphne likes him as more than a friend. Okay, so still in the early episodes, Daphne dates a boy to make Freddie jealous, and Freddie seems to get along pretty well with the boy that she's dating, which led me to believe, oh, okay, they're making Freddie gay in this series. Okay, that's a different take on the character. Sure, go for it. But no, that's not it either. Because at a certain point later in the series, he admits that he has feelings for Daphne. He likes Daphne. But then, in episodes after he admits he likes Daphne, he goes back to acting like he doesn't care about Daphne. They don't give Freddie a legitimate, consistent excuse for why he doesn't want to be with Daphne. Sometimes it's because he's an airhead, sometimes it's because he thinks he's too manly to admit his feelings, sometimes he's just arbitrarily not interested in her, and then other times he's very interested in her. It is very poor writing and so sad when they could have made Freddie a complex character. Make him asexual, make him someone that's just not interested in romance. You know, do something with him other than just have him be weird and inconsistently written. And yes, at the end of the first season, the show gives him kind of sort of a reason why he might be weird with women, but it doesn't justify his behavior in all of these episodes, and it doesn't make it any less frustrating to watch him be this inconsistent from episode to episode. Even if they did give a full, beautiful explanation of why he is the way he is at the end of season 2, it would not make up for how frustrating it is to get there. And wouldn't you believe it, when they finally do get together, something dramatic happens that tears them apart, and then, after a bit of a time skip, Daphne is dating a Taylor Lautner knockoff, because Twilight was still a thing at that time, I guess? Anyway, when Daphne is dating this guy, only then is Freddie super 100% interested in winning her heart and getting her back and being the best boyfriend ever. Because the fake out with Velma and Shaggy having an unrequited love switcheroo wasn't enough, they literally do that with Freddie and Daphne, and it drags on for, well, as much of the second season as I've seen, because I gave up like 3 episodes in. This is the fatal flaw of this series. Yes, it's different in some positive ways, but this is a way that is different in such a negative way that it literally made me quit the series. It is not Mystery Inc., it is Relationship Drama Inc. Also, in the process of trying to quote-unquote develop these characters, they made them pretty obnoxious. Like, Velma being passive-aggressive to Shaggy for all those episodes is really, really annoying. It comes off as super unjustified, especially when it seems like she was the one that was pushing him into the relationship the whole time. At no point does Shaggy even really seem that interested in Velma. It just seems like Velma is bullying him into a relationship with her. And Daphne comes off as just single-mindedly into romance. Like, somehow she became even more of a stereotype girly girl in this show that is supposed to be a little bit more modern and closer to reality than in her previous incarnations. And Freddie can also be downright frustrating when some episodes he'll admit that he likes Daphne, and then other episodes it seems like he is being very willfully ignorant to her feelings towards him. I like the idea of developing the characters more. I like the idea of giving them something to do. I'm not even against pairing them up in relationships. But when you have the same B-plots over and over in every episode, 10 episodes in a row, it's obnoxious, it's mind-numbing, and it's frustrating. That's not how you do serialization. No one wants to see the same story over and over and over again. I know Scooby Doo is known for its formula, but this is ridiculous. You cannot do that with a B-plot like that. And there it is. Ultimately, Mystery Inc. is just as formulaic as any other version of Scooby Doo. If you like Scooby Doo, if you like the formula of Scooby Doo, you probably will like this series. And yes, some of the changes you might find refreshing. And maybe you won't be as frustrated as I am with them reusing the same plot episode after episode. But for me, who is someone that likes Scooby Doo but doesn't particularly love Scooby Doo, I found the problems in this to be really, really overbearing. And the truth is that beyond these aspects, everything else about Mystery Inc. is, well, it's Scooby Doo. When you strip away the ongoing mystery, when you strip away the relationship drama that bleeds into every stinking episode, and the fact that the show takes place in one location, it does feature pretty much all of the tropes that Scooby Doo traditionally has. People dressing up in costumes for petty reasons, incredibly extravagant explanations of how these people pulled off these magnificent special effects with jetpacks and lasers, some pretty goofy comedy. It's pretty much all there, and I'm not even saying that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying that I kind of wish this show would shake up the formula a little bit more if that's what it was trying to do. I mean, yes, they do lampshade a lot of these elements, but they still play them pretty straight. Just because they're making fun of them doesn't mean they're not still doing the tropes. I mean, I guess to be fair, this show has more pop culture references than most other iterations of Scooby Doo. There's an episode that's a parody of Saw, and that one's actually pretty good. And another episode that's a Terminator parody, which is also pretty cool. Oh, and there's that one big Hanna-Barbera crossover Scooby Dream episode. If you can only watch one episode of the series, I definitely recommend that one, which I spoke about on recast number 10, plug. So, do I recommend Scooby Doo Mystery Incorporated? Let me put it this way. If you don't like obnoxious relationship drama that includes love triangles, unrequited love switcheroos, and a character being written inconsistently just to keep up the drama of them not being together. If you can't stand these things, then stay far away from this show. Otherwise, I do think that it is enough of a mix-up in the Scooby format that it is worth checking a few episodes out to see if it is your thing. I don't think the show is a complete failure by any stretch of the imagination, but I do feel like I've had my fill of obnoxious relationship drama after the first season, and I don't need to see any more. And with that, Pie Guy Ghouls out. Happy Halloween.